did you have a miserable life where you were longing to go back to Korea, where you were dying to know who your birth parents were, and that sort of thing, or what? 안녕하세요. This is Mark Peterson with the Frog Outside the Well Research Center. And today we have Mija with us. And we're going to talk about adoption. Because as you can see, she's Korean. She was adopted to America, and she's an American culturally. Mm-hmm. She's learned about Korean as a foreign student, as an American student. But she's interested in Korean, and that's how we met. We met at Yummy's restaurant, in the Yummy's restaurant Korean class.
저는 미자입니다.
아, 좋습니다. 반갑습니다. 한국 사람이에요?
Why did you take that Korean class?
Well, part of, I think, wanting to connect to my Korean heritage and culture is learning the language. It's a very important part of being able to learn more about Korea and connecting and the communication.
So are you learning the language?
I am. And I've learned that I'm not in a natural linguistics.
the language is really hard. It's really hard. Okay, so you were adopted from Korea. You have an interesting story. You had an aunt and uncle who were living in Korea. Mm-hmm. Military?
Correct, yes. He was stationed over in Korea through the United States Army at the time.
And they did the adoption for you with the full intention of giving you to his brother.
That's correct. They were planning on doing a transfer of adoption, and at the time they didn't know how the government would feel about that. So for all purposes, they just told people they were adopting
straight
for
out.
them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were raised where?
When I first came over to the United States, my family was living in Maryland, and then we moved to Arkansas for a few years. But most of my life, I grew up in Washington State.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And now you're living here in Utah.
Correct. I've lived here in Utah probably as long as I had lived in Washington.
Uh-huh. One question that Koreans a lot of times have about adoptees is, are they happy? You know, did you have a miserable life where you were longing to go back to Korea, where you were dying to know who your birth parents were, and that sort of thing, or what?
I had a really great life. I think that all childhood and all families have their challenges, but overall, as an adoptee, I had a great childhood. I was the only one adopted in my family. I have 6 older brothers that are biological
brothers
or brothers and sisters. So
sisters, okay.
I have 6 older siblings, 3 brothers and 3 sisters that are biological, and I'm the youngest one that was adopted and the only one from Korea.
Wow. Why did your parents? They got 6 of their own. What in the world do they need another child for?
That's a great question, because I asked my mom that same question, and she said that they wanted another little girl, but not necessarily have to go through child and delivery and pregnancy. Mm-hmm. So
she'd been through it 6 times, and enough's enough. When my daughter had her second one, it was so hard. She said, no more. Well, guess what? They're thinking about having another one. Yeah. Yeah, the birthing process is really, men have no idea, you know. How many kids do you have?
I only have 1. See, I can handle it. I can only do it one time.
Okay, so you're raised in a large family. Mm-hmm. Were you a lot younger than the older 6, or just a little bit younger?
So my oldest brother, the oldest in our family, there's a 16-year age difference. But
that's
my
not too bad for
sister,
kids.
That's the youngest of the biological children, there's a 1.5 year age difference.
Oh, okay.
So we're fairly close.
You're close with her.
Well, in age, but not necessarily in personality.
Oh, really? Do you identify better with some of the other siblings?
I do. My oldest sister, Debbie, we're very close.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, they're all great, but there's some that you connect with a little more than others.
That's the way all families are. Yeah. So you grew up normal and healthy and happy. Were you the only Asian in your class, in the various classes growing up?
Typically, yes. I lived in a very Caucasian community, and so I was the only Asian through elementary school. In middle school, there was a few other Asian children, other students, and then in high school, a few more. But most of the time, I was around a lot of white people.
Yeah. So you grew up thinking you're white. Were you picked on at all? Did anybody bully you for about say funny things to you?
The only time that I really remember was in middle school, and there were two boys that would call me names that weren't very nice.
Yeah.
But other than that, everyone was very kind. And the irony, though, was one of the boys that was making fun of me, he was black. He was African American.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I thought, well, aren't we both a little different?
Yeah. My daughter, my older daughter, was very outgoing, cheerleader, and all of this, and she was seen as different. Not many Asian students in her school, but she was seen as the cool Asian. She was accepted and okay generally. But both my daughters have had some issues. But you basically grew up happy.
Absolutely. I have been surrounded by and been very blessed to be with a good family, good friends. Granted, there have been times where, like you said, when there was maybe some insecurities for being the only Asian, but it wasn't anything that I think really affected my overall well-being.
What about your birth mother, maybe your birth father? Did you grow up with a burning desire to know who they were?
I really didn't. I mean, I had some curiosity, but my family was always very open about my adoption and telling me kind of what information they did have, which was very little. But I do remember I was probably about 25, and it was on my birthday, and my mother said to me, Nija, wherever your birth mother is, I hope she had a good life. And in that moment, I really started to think about my birth mother, and I never really had.
Until you're 25.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to really think about the life that she had lived, what maybe took place after that. And so it really was impactful. And I thought, yeah, I hope she did have a good life.
And you have no information on her.
No information.
You've
at all.
tried to find her, but no information. Your story is like the story of my daughter and her two sisters. I did a video about them, and then they discovered a brother, and I did a video about my daughter having they're one of four biologically
That's
related.
amazing.
Different fathers, the DNA says, but all four of those children, now full-grown adults, said they didn't grow up with a burning desire to know who this birth mother was, which is a different thing from what most Koreans understand. Most Koreans tend to think that adopted children are cast-offs, poor, lonely, unhappy children wanting to know about their life back in Korea, but that wasn't the case with you at all.
It wasn't. Now, once I became a mother myself and I started to realize that my connection to my Korean ancestry and heritage, I did become more interested in wanting to learn about the culture of Korea, because I wanted to pass that on to my son. I wanted him to be able to say, you know what, I'm half Korean. I'm proud of it. This is what it means to be Korean.
Is he proud of it?
He is. He identifies more as Korean than his other half.
Oh, really?
It's cute because he'll mark on papers like, ethnicity, Korean.
Really? Now, you've gone back to Korea a bunch of times.
Correct. Yes.
How come?
Well, the first time I went back in 1996 with my parents was just to be able to experience Korea. And it really was kind of a touristy experience. Hey, we're going to Korea. I didn't know anything about Korean culture, food. I went in kind of blind. I just didn't really know what to expect. And then I went back again in 2018 with an adoptee group. It's called the Mosaic Tour, and it's sponsored by a nonprofit group called Me in Korea. And they do these return trips back to Korea for adoptees. And it's not always about birth search. Some of it is they help with birth searches. They'll go to the agencies, but
How many are successful in the birth search?
it varies each year. But I know last year when we went back, I think there was about 7 or 8 that had birth reunions out of 26.
Oh, really?
It was a large number last year of birth reunions.
Now, you say last year. You've done this,
Multiple years.
and you're on the staff now.
Correct. So in 2018, I went back as an actual tour member of the Mosaic Tour. And since then, I've been going back as a tour member staff. So this will be my 3rd year going back as a staff.
So you're learning about Korea. You're studying the language. You like to cook.
Mm-hmm.
You like Korean food.
Absolutely.
And you're proud of your heritage.
Mm-hmm.
No regrets.
I don't. And I know that for some people in the adoptee community, that might not be a popular thing to say, but I look at it as not that I'm an adoptee, but me as a person. And I look at my life and what I've experienced and what I have, and we all have regrets regardless of who our families are, or I guess our family of origin is. And so overall, I can say I don't have any regrets, and I'm happy and grateful with where I am in life.
Well, that's great. Well, Mija, thank you for coming in and joining us, and thanks for sharing your story with my audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Bye.